We are awaiting a news conference this afternoon after the Biden administration makes a stunning U-turn on its border policy as we get new video of hundreds of migrants rushing the border overnight. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is set to waive over 24 federal laws to expedite the urgent construction of a border wall in Texas to stem the historic flow of migrants. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno here with my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany. And also joining us today, Fox News contributor and board-certified physician Dr. Nicole Saphier, and the 32nd Undersecretary of the Army, former Pennsylvania Congressman and Iraq combat veteran Patrick J. Murphy. Now, dramatic new video from El Paso showing hundreds of migrants charging the border in a full run, chanting "Si se puede," or "Yes, it can be done." That is just one incident of migrants flooding the border. 260,000 have been encountered last month alone, the highest monthly total ever recorded. Perhaps this is why the administration is finally changing its tune on the border crisis, which, remember, they refused to even cite as such. With now Secretary Mayorkas saying, quote, "There is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers and roads in the vicinity of the border of the United States in order to prevent unlawful entries into the United States." Now, that's interesting, considering former President Trump was hammered for demanding a wall. Watch.
But we need the wall, and it has to be built, and we want to build it fast. The number of illegal immigrants crossing our borders is so large that we've nowhere to hold them.
And President Biden vowed he'd never build one.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration.
Yeah.
Congressman, a massive U-turn.
A massive U-turn, but a much needed one. Emily, the fact is this, is that the primary and sacred duty of our government is to keep our families safe here at home. This is a national security issue, a humanitarian crisis, not just on the border, but also in our cities like New York, Chicago, and elsewhere. So it is about time, and I think we're all thrilled as Americans that they're getting a message.
All right, well, let's talk about that a little bit, Kayleigh, because we have, for example, some sound of just exactly what those Chicago residents, how they feel about the border crisis that has affected all 50 states. Watch.
You cannot keep bringing immigrants in. The city does not have the money.
You cannot track them. You ain't tracking them good at the police station. You don't know their name, but you want to spread them all over the city.
It is unsanitary, it's unsafe, and it's just not right.
Now, those are just some of the voices, but it's reflected in larger national polls. This absolute dereliction of duty and the fact that everyone is disapproving of the way Biden has been handling immigration to the tune of 62%, Kayleigh.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not surprised. The hypocrisy here is just oozing from this administration. From the day one promise of Biden, building a massive wall that spans the entire southern border is not a serious solution. My favorite, though, is Karine Jean-Pierre. You can always go to her for the best sound bites from this administration. Go over to her. She was asked about a border wall. You know what she said? The reason we can't have a border wall? Heavy winds. Her direct quote, "It would waste taxpayer dollars on an ineffective wall that can't withstand heavy winds." So all of a sudden, I love today's briefing. I think it's 1 p.m. Someone asked her, did the winds change? Why can we have a border wall now, but over the summer, the heavy winds were an impediment? Also, someone needs to ask the media, when Trump tried this, built nearly 500 miles of border wall, Bloomberg, this isn't a border wall. It's a monument to white supremacy. New York Times, Trump's wall of shame. They call it a reminder of white racial hostility. And NBC, Trump's border wall was never about security. It's meant to remind Latinos they're unwelcome. So media, where are the headlines like that? They don't exist. The hypocrisy from the White House, can't wait to hear. KJP at 1.
Harris, you've covered extensively how the families feel, how the citizens feel. Border Patrol getting killed in record numbers, committing suicide in record numbers, people having to take out loans for their school supplies, like the individual stories and the horrors that these states and these law enforcement officers have been experiencing for so long. While this administration refused to cite it as a crisis or even turn any eye toward it. Now we get this at the 11th hour. I guess I'm grateful, but I can't help being so angry that for so many years, everyone was ignored.
Yeah, you know what? That's why this isn't going to be enough. Because this is politics. He's flexing. He just, had the $9 billion relief in school debt loans. He sees those polling numbers, and this is another flex. And it is so corrosive politically for him right now to turn a blind eye that they're willing to do something that he said he'd never do. He ran on being the opposite of Trump. He flipped the switch on so many policies, particularly within the lane of Biden's border crisis. I mean, it started to get worse almost the day he got into office. So to simply now do this without acknowledging, I think you need a fireside chat. I think you need to tell the people in this country that we are your first priority, and to thank those border agents and their families, because the entire family serves. When that man or woman goes out for 30 and 48-hour shifts at a time, you don't think they're missed? Oh, they're missed. He owes them the gratitude and the apology for it having taken so long. And you know what else he owes? He owes money to states like Texas and those people who have broken their bank accounts and their backs to try to make it work for the more than 7 million that have come across the border on his watch. He owes a lot right now. And I don't know if you can ever get that back without acknowledging it first. And I will say this, you have never changed your tune. You have been right there, you and Representative Cuellar. You've been right there, and you're not from a border state.
Well, I appreciate it, Harris. And I would say not just the Border Patrol agents who are heroes and their families, but also the fact that you have Democratic leaders that are stepping up. J.B. Pritzker, who's the governor of Illinois, Mayor Adams here in New York.
It had to get bad in Chicago for him.
Yeah, right. And even in New York, I mean, there's 100,000 migrants here in the city of New York. So, again, we need to come together as Americans to solve this national security issue. And by the way, China is exploiting this. China is sending fentanyl, the precursor drugs for fentanyl, which has killed 100,000 Americans last year.
Well, we know.
So, Doctor, let's talk about priorities for a second, because part of the consistently reflected sentiment of American people is how forgotten they are, not just and most importantly law enforcement, but everyday citizens, because they see stuff like this. Here is a list of the things that are given to undocumented immigrants from some state and local governments: housing, cash assistance, education, healthcare, food, foreclosure prevention, legal support. I have seen lines of people, of Americans who are waiting for those things to be given to them that they have earned, and yet that's handed out along with iPhones.
But we've heard some of the sound bites coming out of Chicago where you have American citizens who are saying that they're already feeling at the bottom of the barrel, yet all of these resources are being prioritized to the illegal migrants coming through. I mean, the reality is the United States has become a willing facilitator in the largest human and drug trafficking that we've probably ever seen. And yet the response is completely disjointed. You have Blinken, Mayorkas, and Garland down in Mexico right now to talk about fentanyl coming from China and also the migrant situation. But then you also have Mayor Adams going down to Mexico himself separately. It's like clowns getting out of a clown car. They're not actually working together here. And to bring it down to a basic level, they rolled back the Trump-era policies. We know that happened. And since then, over 6 million migrants have crossed the border. That's 6 times the population of Rhode Island. So call it a barrier, not a wall. Call it the stay put in Mexico, not remain in Mexico. But whatever you have to do, we have to do something. And it's unfortunate that it has taken these Democrats now calling to the White House saying, hey, our seats are up for grabs in legislation for something to be done.
That 6 million doesn't count the 1.5 million gotaways that came into the country.
Right.
That's how I get to 7.6.
Exactly. And those kids are still missing. It is still a crisis. It is still Biden's America, unfortunately.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.